Hi friends, and welcome back to my channel and today's video. So the Swedish word of the day is serial killer, which is in Swedish seriemördare. Seriemördare. In today's video, I am going to do another makeup and murder video. This is where I talk about true crime while I get ready. So I do my makeup while talking about a true crime case. And if you're wondering about anything that's on my face, everything will be listed down below in the description bar. But I did want to tell you guys that I did upload one of these videos about a week ago, but it was a missing person case video. I don't know if you saw it because I actually got very low views on it. It could be that I did a missing person video and you guys aren't really that interested in it. I don't really know, but I thought that I would mention it in case you missed it. So I'll link it right up here and in my description box along with my playlist for these videos. But today we're not talking about a missing person case. Today we're talking about Sweden's worst serial killer when it comes to the amount of people who actually died. So let's just get into this case. So today we're actually traveling back to 1978. Our location is a hospital in Malmö. I'll put it on the screen right now so you can see where Malmö is located in Sweden. We are going to go into a specific department in this hospital, and this department is called Department 26, and this is separated into two different departments, if you could say that. So we have the yellow side and then we have the green side, and we are going to start off in the yellow side. This entire department had around 50 patients and they were all elders. You could call this like a end destination for these elders. It was the last location they would go to before their death. So they were going to die in this place, and they were senile. A lot of them had dementia, and a lot of them needed help in their day-to-day life. So that's why they were located at the hospital. Karl-Erik is one of the younger people actually living at this department. He was 66 years old. He was described as a very sort of satisfied man. He was pretty happy in general, but he was almost blind. So that was why he was staying there, so that they could help him. He wasn't fully blind, but he was partially blind. So during the morning of October 6th, 1978, a staff member alarms a nurse that Karl-Erik isn't really feeling well. So she runs into the room just to see what's up with him. They did know that Karl-Erik had previously had a fever and a little bit of a cough, but he was on the verge of getting better. So they ran inside to see what was up with him, and he couldn't speak. He was kind of almost like shaking a little bit, and he couldn't speak, but he was rattling like, "Help me, help me." He was trying to say, "Help me," or at least they have said that it sounded like he was trying to say "help me." The nurse calls for the doctor working that night at Malmö's hospital, which comes there to see what's wrong with Karl-Erik, and he states that he thinks that Karl-Erik had thrown up his food, and that was why he couldn't speak. He also had a lot of foam coming out of his mouth, and he also had like a red stripe along his neck. So the foam that was coming from his mouth, they tried to suck away, but they said like it never really ended. And I realized that if you haven't worked in a hospital or with elders or with sick people in general, you might not really understand what it means when you suck a person. It sounds really strange, but basically they do it with a form of machine. If I'm gonna try and explain it very easily, they have a form of machine that they can put into the person's mouth so that they will suck away what is blocking them, because they might have a problem. Maybe they are a little bit weaker in the throat area, or they have some form of problem. To help with this, they take this sucking machine and put it into their mouth so that they can get away all of this foam or whatever mucus or whatever it is that blocks, and then they will be able to breathe and to talk and just help them out in that sort of area. Then they leave him, and during the day his condition just gets worse and worse and worse, and by 3 p.m. he's dead. No one really knew what was going on, but we know now that this was our serial killer's first victim. When they are cleaning the room so that another person can move into the room, one of the nurses spots a mug, and I don't know what this specific mug is called. It's a sort of mug that you use for children. I'm gonna put a picture right here so you can see what it looks like. But she finds a mug like this, and this belonged to Karl-Erik, and she can detect some brown spots in the bottle, and she gets a chill. So the brown liquid that she saw is called Ivisol. Ivisol and also another detergent called Gevisol was used to clean. So they used these different substance or detergents to clean wheelchairs, and this made everything like bacteria free and made it so that it was a very, very clean place to be at. And of course she starts wondering, what the fuck is this doing in his mug? It's the last place where it needs to be. So today we know that this is the poison that our serial killer picked, because it was easy to have a hold of, and it was already at the hospital. But they didn't know it at the time, so they started talking about this during a staff meeting, and they were talking about why this detergent was in his mug, and they came to realize that maybe during the times where they had to run into Karl-Erik's room many times during that day to suck him and to help him. So they said that maybe at some point they needed to clean the sucking machine, and maybe someone needed to put the Gevisol or Ivisol in something, so they put it into his mug and then cleaned it out. And that would explain why it was in the mug. Today we know that that wasn't the case. I still felt the need to explain that they did try to come to terms with why it was in his mug. So the killer usually used Gevisol or Ivisol and spat it out with water or juice. During the autopsy, they stated that he had died of natural causes. They never mentioned the red stripe, and they said that he died from pulmonary edema. Am I saying that correctly? So when they have cleaned out Karl-Erik's old room, 91-year-old Axel moves into his room. On October 12th, which is only 6 days after Karl-Erik's death, a nurse is going to help Axel go to the bathroom. This is something that they usually needed help with. And she realizes that she forgot something, so she needs to go ahead and get that, but she doesn't want to leave him alone, so she asks a staff member to look after him while she goes and gets this missing item. When the nurse comes back into the room, Axel is behaving very strangely. It's almost like he's trying to scream or to say something. She can see that he has a lot of pain. He's like bending over. Once again, a lot of foam is coming out of his mouth, and she doesn't know what is going on. We know that our serial killer had given Axel poison. Once again, the killer had given Axel a mixture of either Gevisol or Ivisol that they blended out with water and then given him. So that was why a lot of foam was coming out, and he had a lot of pain, and that was why he couldn't really talk. Axel doesn't get much better, so they decide to move him to another department. He's in this department for 2 days, and he actually gets better. So after 2 days, he comes back to his old department, I mean. So October 16th is a Monday, and this is, as I said, when Axel comes back to the department. He needs help to go to the bathroom, so a staff member helps him to go to the bathroom, and this staff member doesn't have authorities to help the elders if something serious happens. This person only has the authorities to help them go to the bathroom, give them water, you know, stuff like that. But this person doesn't have any authorities to give them medication, or doesn't have any knowledge of that either. So this person alerts the other staff member, like the nurses and shit, that applauds the staff member, the original staff member, and tells this person that, wow, you're doing a wonderful job. It's so good that you're so attendant and looks after the elders and that you spot them and everything like that. This is the same staff member who had given Axel another dose of this poison. So this person gives them poison and then tells the staff members or the nurses that this person, this elderly person, isn't really feeling very well. You need to come and help them. So this person also knows that they can't really speak or anything, but still, I feel like it's a very bold move because they could rat out on this person. If they were able to talk, they could say, this person gave me something, but that never happens because they can't talk. Axel again gets a lot of foam from his mouth. He is in serious pain. He bends over, he rattles. Our staff member, or the serial killer, stands there looking at Axel for 10 to 15 minutes before leaving. For this person, obviously it's some sort of pleasure, I would guess, seeing this, seeing what this person had done with them, but still, it's so fucked up because a normal person, if it were you or me, we would look at these people and be like, oh my god, we need to help them, we need to make them feel better, and we would get sick to our stomachs. But this person just looks at it, kind of almost fascinated at it. Later that same night, Axel dies and the autopsy is done the day after. During the autopsy, they state once again that he had died from natural causes. They don't mention the red mark on his neck. And once again, the red stripes in the autopsy isn't mentioned. They said that he had an emergent inflammatory permission in the respiratory, and they also thought that he might have had pneumonia. Our next victim is a woman. This is a 92-year-old woman who's called Agda. On October 23rd, she gets immediately sick. Our staff member again runs to the nurses, reports that Agda isn't really feeling well. This person gets a lot of praise because this person spotted Agda, that she wasn't feeling very well, and that this person is very, very attendant and sees all of the elders. Every time that one of these people have gotten sick or one of the elders have gotten sick, this person has alerted the staff, most of the times anyway, and this person always gets praised for it, that this person is always the first one to spot it, and that it's very attendant, and that it sees the elders, and it's very, very caring, and you know, just bullshit, because this person is the one that is making them feel sick. Agda has the same symptoms that the other one has. She gets the red stripe, she gets a lot of foam, but they treat her, but then an hour later she starts feeling worse again, and this is because our killer had gone in and given her a second dose of this poison. So I just want to point something out. Imagine you being this older person, a staff member comes in to give you a drink. You're thirsty, you take the drink out of this mug, you realize that it's something very, very bad, you don't want anything more, they forced you to drink, you start feeling worse, you can't talk, you can't tell anyone that what this person did to you, and then you see this person coming into the room again with a mug and is forcing you to drink it again. Can you imagine the fear that they had? They knew that this person is obviously not up to anything good, and now this person comes into your room again and is trying to kill you, but you can't tell anyone. That fear that they must have had is insane. So later that same night, Agda dies. So these aren't the only killings that have happened. Obviously, I can't talk about everyone. I wish I could, but I can't. This is the only time I do a video, except for the video that I did with Annie Börjesson, that I will link right up here, that I didn't download the police investigation. Usually I have that as a guideline, then I can get everything, and it's, you know, I know all of the information and everything is correct, and I know that it's factual. But here today, I just couldn't do it because this is such an old case. So I don't have access to everyone who died and the specific timeline. I kind of had to take information from different places and put it into a sort of timeline for you guys. But there were more people who had died during this period of time. So just know that there's a lot of people who's been dying. These 3 people that I have talked about so far aren't the only ones who have died. So the staff starts to get a little bit worried because obviously there's a lot of people dying and they don't really know why, and they find it to be very, very strange. Of course, they were working with elderly people or older people, so they knew that they would eventually die, but it was just like a lot of people who died in a short period of time, and they thought that it was a little bit strange. Sure, this could have been a coincidence, but they still thought that it was very, very strange. They start to suspect that maybe all of these elderly people have had pneumonia. But there isn't anything in the autopsy that would connect all of the dead people or the people who had died. There were nothing in the autopsy that said that these people had pneumonia. If they would have written the autopsy correctly and have written all of the information in there, maybe they would have catched their killer way quicker and not as many people would have died. But as I said, all of the people who died had this red stripe going from their neck, and that was never written down. And that's why, you know, all of these chiefs and all of the bosses that worked at the hospital, when they looked at the autopsy, when the staff came to them, they couldn't see a connection and they only looked at the autopsies. That was all of the information that they had to go on. So of course they said that no, it says here they died from this and this, nothing to connect everyone. I understand that the bosses did that, but still it must have been very, very frustrating for the people who worked with them. So there's a lot more people dying, but in the end of October, this could have gotten an end if they had just taking these accusations a little bit more serious. So our killer actually goes up to a woman called Iris, and the killer has this poison cocktail that he or she usually had, and it tries to give it to Iris. So Iris is she's a tough cookie. She managed to alert the staff that someone in the staff have tried to pour something very, very strong in her mouth, and she points out one of the staff members and tells that was the person that did it. They don't take her seriously, and that is such a shame. You see, they were working with people who were senile and that had dementia, and they could now and then say things that were a little bit strange and that people kind of just rolled their eyes at. It wasn't like they thought that she was lying or anything. They knew that she was telling her truth, but they just didn't really believe what she was saying, which is, again, it's such a shame because she was correct, and later that day she would eventually die. And it's such a shame because she tried to do everything she could. She tried to tell the staff members that this other staff member tried to pour something strange and very, very strong in her mouth, and no one took her seriously. I mean, she did the best she could, and then later on the staff member comes in again to her and gives her this poison cocktail that eventually made her die that same night. It's really, really heartbreaking, and again, I just want to stress the fear that she must have had for this person. On November 14th, a 84-year-old woman whose name is Ebba eats dinner. She gets help from our killer to eat her dinner. She also gets this poisonous drink that contained Gevisol. She does not swallow this cocktail. She actually spits it out on her plate. And now she starts to cough and scream. So the nurses comes in, running into the room and asks her what's going on. And they can see that she has spit out her dinner onto her plate. And she says that she got something very, very strong in her mouth that our killer had given her. So our killer actually says that they had given her cough medication. But again, this person didn't have any authorities to give any medication. This person only had easier tasks, like helping around with easier things that the staff needed help with, such as feeding the elders. So she confronts them and says, who gave you the cough medication and who told you to give her that? The person retracts and says, no, by the way, I didn't give her anything. Which is just like, what? She doesn't continue to confront them about this. She kind of just tries to help Ebba and then goes into the other staff members. And she says that she doesn't trust this person. She says that the only thing that you could confuse cough medication with is Gevisol, because of the color. The other staff member becomes upset with her. They tell her that this is such a serious accusation. And I think that it's very, very easy for us today that sits here and say, why didn't they detect anything? How couldn't they detect anything? They must have been lazy people, they must have been stupid, or X, Y, and Z. I've seen a lot of things been said about these people, and I don't think that it's strange that they never suspected this person to walk around and killing people. I think that it's such a unnormal situation. I think that it's such a jump to think that someone has done a mistake, to think that, oh, maybe this person is a serial killer, maybe this person walks around killing people. Like, that doesn't happen. That happens to other people. It doesn't happen to us. Being a serial killer and being like working with a serial killer is something that is so strange, and it's something that is so unnormal. So to me, I don't think it's strange that they never detected anything. And I also just want to point out that the staff member never said that she thought that this person was a serial killer or anything. She just said that she didn't trust this person, and maybe she thought that this person tried to help Ebba by trying to give them cough medication, but then realized that, fuck, it wasn't cough medication, it was some form of cleaning device, this Gevisol, and was too ashamed to admit it. I don't think that she thought that, oh, this is a serial killer, because I'm pretty sure that if she thought that, like, honestly, she would have called the police. I think that anyway, it's time to reveal who the killer is. I really feel like it's time to talk about him. I don't need to say them. I've said him so many times that I have needed to say my line again and again and again. It's finally. So our killer is called Anders Hansson, and he was, when he was working there, 18 years old. He got a job there in September and in October. Just 1 month and 2 days after he had started working there, he started his killing spree. So this person wasn't a nurse, he wasn't a doctor, he was hired as a form of helper. As I said, he had easier tasks, and I know I've said this so many times, but I felt like it's really, really important to stress that he had no authorities at all. He was just there to help the elders eat, so he was his task was to feed them or to give them water or something to drink if they were thirsty. He could also clean, and Gevisol was what he cleaned the wheelchairs with. I think he might have cleaned something else with it as well, but it was just like that was in all of the departments because they used it to clean and sterilize different areas. So before he started working at Malmö's hospital, he actually worked at another hospital in the same city, and he worked as a sort of is it called like a fill-in or a substitute teacher? I don't know, a substitute teacher you say, but he was working there as a fill-in. He only worked there for 3 months, and after 3 months he would get a grading, and this grading was pretty clear. So I'm just gonna look at my notes and I am going to read what they wrote. I have of course translated it into English for you guys, but they said the department have stated that he has no power of initiative at all. He acts strangely in the department and doesn't seem to understand what you're telling him. He shall not be rehired. And they really took an emphasis that he's not going to be rehired. Today, a lot of people wonder how could he have gotten a job at Malmö's hospital if he got this grading, but it's very simple. He actually never showed this grading to them, and also Malmö's hospital had been in some scandals. They had been accused of trying to kill one of their patients. They have been accused of beating them. So there were 7 people actually going to trial for this, and therefore a lot of doctors and a lot of other people just didn't want to work there just because of the bad reputation, because they knew that, oh, it's not gonna be, you know, fancy stating that, oh, I work at Malmö's hospital, and then people will be like, oh, maybe they are one of those people, you know. So the boss of the hospital actually had other clinics that was his, that he owned, so he didn't want to be at this government hospital because he couldn't earn as much money there. And then he had someone else fill in for him that was on sick leave, and then all of the doctors, as I said, just didn't really want to work there. So at this department, at the department 26, there was a doctor working there, but he wasn't officially a doctor. He was actually just a grad student. He wasn't done with his studies. I think he had 12 or 11 terms, but he had only studied for 7 of them, so he wasn't fully learned. He didn't have that knowledge and that experience that a lot of people have if they have worked at a hospital for many years. So I think that that also adds to the fact that Anders could kill for as long as he did and as many people as he did before he was caught. Anders was different. He saw things and viewed things differently than maybe the norm would do, and he did things very differently. Like for instance, I'm just gonna find my palette so I can continue with my makeup. So for instance, some things that he could do was that he started working at 7 a.m. and then he ended the day at 4 p.m. He never came 1 minute late or early. He always came 7 a.m. sharp, and that was the same thing when he stopped working. He never went early and he never left late. It didn't matter what he was doing. If the clock turned 4 p.m. he left. And once he was actually feeding one of the elders, an older gentleman. He was feeding him his dinner, and then the clock turned 4, and what he did was that he took the remaining food that was on the plate and he scraped it into the bin, and then he left. While maybe a normal person, depending on how much food there was on the plate, if it wasn't a lot of food, you would stay for those remaining 5 minutes so that the person could get his entire dinner. Or if it was a lot of food, or if you had to take a bus or whatever, you would tell a nurse or someone else working there that, hey, I need to leave, can you take over? But not this guy. He just scraped it into the bin and was like, you're done now, I'm leaving, bye, see you tomorrow. Anders was born in 1960 in Malmö. When he was only 3 weeks old, his parents actually gave him up for adoption. He actually got adopted by a family living in Malmö. The mother and father was a middle-aged couple, and they took him in. He had a very good upbringing. There was nothing wrong with it. There was nothing going on. His family was warm. They were loving. They took care of him. They nurtured him. Like, there was nothing wrong with it at all. If you are into true crime and such, you have probably heard that a lot of serial killers most of the time have had a pretty hard upbringing. So it's very, very rare that they have had this warm and loving family and upbringing that Anders had. The one thing that you could point out is that he was a little bit slow and he was a little bit behind in school, and the teachers actually told the parents that he might need some extra attention and they wanted to put him in a special class, but his parents actually declined this. They did not want to pull him out of school and they did not want to separate him from his class, so he actually just stayed in his class. During the spring of 1974, so this is when he is only 14 years old and 4 years before he starts his killing spree, he goes on a class trip with his class and they go to Denmark and they go to a Tivoli and they are doing some form of activity. And someone, I don't know exactly how it went, but someone accidentally pushed him or something and he falls and hits his head. Nothing major happens, and then later on he goes home and he has an attack. So see, he has these form of spasm. So they take him to the hospital and they realize that he had a concussion and he might be suffering from epilepsy. And why I wanted to mention this is, again, if you aren't known to true crime, a lot of people have actually, a lot of serial killers have actually accidentally bumped their heads, and that might be some form of reason why they have started these killing sprees, or, you know, we just don't really know. But often when we talk about serial killers, that is something that has happened. So I felt the need that it's the best way to like explain everything. On November 15th, he has his last killing on the yellow department, and the victim is now an older woman called Bengta. She is 87 years old and it takes her 6 days to die. He gives her multiple poison drinks or cocktails or whatever you want to call it. I mean, she suffered for 6 days before she dies. The reason why this was his last killing on the yellow department or the yellow side was because he was going over to the green department. And the people working didn't really notice in time that when the killing stopped on the yellow side, they started on the green side, and they never made the connection that it was because he moved the department. They never made that connection, which is again such a frustrating thing when doing research on this case, because what if they had noticed that in time? A victim that we're going to talk about now is a man, an older man called Victor. And what we're going to talk about happens after a few weeks when Anders has been on the green department for a couple of weeks. So once again, it's a normal thing. He's going to help Victor go to the bathroom, and when they are in the bathroom, he's going to give him his normal little poison cocktail. So he pours Ivisol into a cup, but before he managed to give Victor this little cocktail, a nurse comes into the room and asks him what he's doing. He very, very quickly turns around and pours out the Ivisol and water into the drain. And he pretends that he needed to take a drink, that he was thirsty, and just took a little bit of water for himself. So now he starts to get a little bit scared because he was about to get caught this time. If she had gone into the room just a minute later, she would have seen him giving this cocktail to Victor. So he decides to start taking advantage of the fact that he's never really with the other staff. You see, in 1978, they had coffee and smoke breaks in the hospital. And even if you weren't a coffee drinker or a smoker, they still took the time to be with the other staff members and with their colleagues so that they could talk and be social and just sit and have a nice time together. But Anders didn't have that need. He didn't have the need to be with other people. He didn't have the need to be liked by them. He didn't have the need to be socialized with them and to talk about, you know, random shit. So he decided that when they had their coffee and cigarette breaks, he would give the elders these poison cocktails because he knew that they wouldn't walk in on him. So as I said, Anders gets scared and he doesn't try to give anyone else any cocktail or the poison that day. The day after, he builds up some courage and he goes into Victor, and Victor really likes this guy, and he comes in and he gives him the drink, and immediately he gets bad. Like, he starts coughing and he starts to get very, very scared and he starts foaming out of his mouth. So Anders runs to his colleagues or the other staff members and he alerts them that Victor is bad. I don't know what's happened. Please come and help me. They once again praise him for being so good with the elders and for detecting all of these attacks that the elders gets, which makes Anders very, very happy. He feels like a good staff member. And anyway, they go and they try and help Victor. Victor doesn't die, but he gets very, very bad. And he gets another cocktail after lunch, and again, he doesn't die, but he's very, very bad. Anders goes home for the day at 4. The day after, he comes back and his daughter, Victor's daughter, is there visiting him. And she detects that when Anders comes into the room, Victor starts screaming and he's scared AF. He's so scared, he starts screaming and he needs to like sit up in order to breathe properly. They all knew that he's going to pass very, very soon, and the next day he dies. He dies on November 14th. The staff starts realizing that there's so many people that has died now. They get scared that it's something contagious walking around. They talk to the boss and he denies it. He says, no, there's nothing in the autopsy that can prove that. But the members that work there, they're very scared for their safety. So even though the bosses denies it, they still start to wear protective clothes when going into different rooms where people have died a lot, because they are scared for their own safety, as I said. So let's jump to January 12th, 1979. During the morning, he kills someone, and then he wants to kill again that same day. The person that he wants to kill now is Elsa. She is 93 years old, and she's a feisty old woman or young woman. I don't know. He tries to give her his famous medication cocktail. And she starts screaming, "What are you giving me? I don't want this. This is too strong." So Anders, he's so smart. He goes into the kitchen and he asks the staff if they can help him with Elsa. But this time, no one would praise him. When the staff comes into Elsa's room, the entire room reeks of Gevisol. This might not be that strange, because a lot of the times it could smell a little bit like that. Again, if you don't remember, this is what they use to clean, just to get everything like sterilized and everything like that. But one of the staff member actually smells in Elsa's mouth, and she detects that it smells very strongly of Gevisol. Elsa holds up her mug. She points at Anders and says, "He did it. He gave this to me." So the person in charge says that no one is allowed to leave, and they end up calling the police, and the police arrives and they take Anders with them. They interrogate him and he confessed. He confessed to have given Elsa this Gevisol drink or cocktail, medication, whatever you want to call it. And then he tells them that since I confessed, maybe I could go home now, because I'm going to eat chicken at home with my mom. I promised her to be home by this time. I'm always home by this time, and I don't want her to worry about me. And I think that when hearing that, that says a lot about his state of mind and how pretty like unsmart he was, or how, I don't want to say that he was unsmart. Well, he had a pretty low IQ, but I did want to say that he wasn't the sharpest knife in the drawer. He didn't really realize how serious this was. The police tries to explain to him that no, you're not gonna be able to come home. And another thing that he actually said during one of these interrogations is that over the next couple of days, they are of course going to interrogate him more, and sometime during this questioning, he actually asks them a question which I thought stood out. Well, I don't think I'm the only one. He asks them, are we going to be done by February 4th? They ask him, I don't know, I don't think so. Why do you ask? And he says, well, I have a contract with the hospital and it actually ends on February 4th, and I would like them to rehire me because I was really comfortable at the department that I was working in, and I would like to return and continue to work there. So that's why I'm wondering, are we going to be done by February 4th? Are you serious? No, they don't want to rehire you. They are no one is going to want you to work with people. Ever. So during these interrogations, he actually confessed to have poured Gevesol or Ivesol into 42 different people. He had given 42 people this poison. Just let that sink in. 42 people. That's like 2 school classes. 28 of these 42 had died. And this was only during 5 months. 5 months. That's insane. He started working there in September 1978 and he was caught in January 1979. September 4th to January 12th. Like, that's fucked up. 42 people? Sure, not everyone died, but I'm sure that every single one of them had a traumatic experience. So now it's time to talk about the motive. Why would he do this? It's not really known what the motive actually was. They think that maybe it was because of the fact that he actually alarmed the staff and usually got praised for it, and it was very important for him to be appreciated in his work. It's so strange to me that that was the reason why he started killing 28 people, but tried to kill a lot more and thought that he could return to the department or to the hospital to continue to work there. Like, who would trust that person? No one. In Sweden, we don't have a jury, so we have judges. We have more than one that decides the outcome of the trial, which means that we don't ever go on emotion. We only go on the facts, and if there's not enough evidence, you cannot convict someone. We talked about this in my Abbe Blattelito case that I will link right up here. He was sentenced for 18 years, but then the Supreme Court the Court of Appeal, I'm sorry, said that there wasn't enough evidence to convict him to 18 years, so they freed him. Same thing here. Even though he had confessed to 28 killings, they could not convict him for that. They needed to prove it. They could actually only prove 11 killings. So he was sentenced to 11 kills and 16 attempts of murder. And of course, he wasn't sentenced to jail because, as you may have noticed, he wasn't in his right state of mind, so he was sentenced to closed psychiatric care. He spent 13.5 years there before he was let out. You heard me. He was let out. He is alive today. I think that this might be a picture of him. I'm not completely sure. You might ask, what is he doing? Well, he still lives in Malmö. So congratulations to Malmö, he's still alive there. Be safe, don't take any drinks from anyone you don't know, especially someone older. It is possible that he has changed his name. I forgot to say this previously about the motive, but Anders actually says that he killed the people or the elders because he felt sorry for them. Even though that some of them were happy with their lives, he thought that he could kill them because they might as well die. They're going to die eventually anyway, so why not just kill them? 4 years ago, in 2015, a Swedish newspaper actually met up with Anders and had a little interview with him. Of course, he's blurred out in all of the pictures, but they came to his home just to talk to him a little bit about it. And they used a pseudo name, like a fake name on him in the article, and they asked him about the murders, and he actually said that no, I don't really think about it. He said that I have put all of that behind me. I have moved on and I never think about it. It's insane to me that this man is living in freedom and has just put it behind him. But think about all of the other people, all of the children to these elder people, like, and the people that worked with him, they that haven't been able to put this behind them, and he that did it can just casually like brush it off and be like, no, I've put it behind me, I never think about it. That's disgusting. That was all from me today. This video is going to be demonetized because I'm talking about a serial killer. So if you could, and if you want to, no pressure, but if you would, I would love it if you could thumbs up or down this video, depending on if you thought that it was good or if you thought that it was bad. Just give me a little appreciation, up or down, thumbs up or a thumbs down. And if you could share this video, I would really appreciate it, but you don't have to. If you're new here, subscribe. I'm going to do a lot more true crime videos. So yeah, thumbs up if you're happy about that. But I'm gonna go now. So thank you for listening to this case today. Bye.